Hello, and welcome everyone to the Insurgents podcast, episode 114. Episode 114. Amazing.
That's right. 114 episodes of your favorite podcast.
That's right. That everyone loves. The podcast that everyone loves.
Yes.
Everyone's always talking about.
The podcast sweeping the nation.
Sweeping the movement. It's not it's not even a podcast anymore. It's a movement.
It's a collective.
And
you're all part of it.
That's right. Yes, you are. And today we're talking to our friend LucidFoxx. He's a fellow Twitch streamer, commentator. We had a really great conversation with LucidFoxx. He's going to be coming on the show soon. I'm very sick, and I've been streaming. I'm literally streaming right now at this very moment, and have been for the last 8 hours and 21 minutes. So I think we're going to keep this intro quick before we get to Lucid. But Jordan wanted to hit you up with a nice call to action to remind people to do what, Jordan? What did you want to remind people to do?
Well, first I want to acknowledge that this is Jordan's flu game. This is like Game 5, 97 finals.
Yeah,
Rob,
that's right.
Through it all, through sickness, through an 8-hour stream, still did the episode, still doing the intro. This guy's committed. This is a level of athleticism and professionalism that I don't think we've seen in podcasts ever. So,
thank you.
Got to recognize that. MVP.
This is what I've been telling people. It's not about me. It's not about my own personal well-being. It's not about my own health. It's about me going to work every day, going to the office, rolling up the sleeves, grabbing the lunch pail, kind of a salt of the earth content miner. And that's my commitment to you, the audience of this podcast, the audience on Twitch, to deliver you the content that you know and love, regardless of my own physical well-being. It's not about me. It's about giving people the content that they love.
Yeah, that's
my values.
We appreciate it.
Thank you.
The call to action is to become a subscriber at the insurgents.substack.com. We've got a couple great new premium episodes out over there for you. Our most recent one with Chris Geidner, who you may have seen his work in BuzzFeed News over the years, or The Appeal, and longtime blog readers will probably remember Law Dork, a very prominent legal blog before he worked at these esteemed publications. So Chris joined us last week to break down the final weeks of the Supreme Court and previewed a look ahead over the next few months, the cases they might be considering to grant cert to, in legal speak. Next term, the potential death of the administrative state and the independent state legislature theory that they'll examine next term. And then before that, we had Jeremy and Matt of Hard Drive, and they talked to us about Elon Musk's weird obsession with them and their memes and their content. And that just took on a whole new life after the past couple of weeks with his like baby on the way story, and then his dad like impregnating like his what it was, like stepdaughter or something
like that he had known since she was an infant.
Yeah, and their whole new weird like we gotta repopulate the earth shit. So like if you really want to get inside the mind of Elon Musk, like listen to that episode, and they're very, very funny. So we have we had a great conversation with them. So the insurgents.substack.com, you could support the show, get access to those episodes, and we really, really appreciate those of you who are paid subscribers. The insurgents.substack.com.
And listen, folks, if you're into podcasting and media, it's a tough industry to break into. And one way you can do that is by becoming an official intern of the Insurgents podcast. And we do have paid internships. We are offering the paid internship program. It's really exciting. And the way that it works is that you pay $5 per month on Substack or $55 annually to subscribe to the Insurgents podcast, and then you become an official Insurgents intern, and you're a part of the whole team.
Yeah.
That's a great opportunity for you.
Become a paid intern of the Insurgents.
Our pay
forgot we were going to roll this out.
I just remembered while you were in the middle of pitching people on it. And I was like, this is a good time to bust this out, I think. The paid internship program. Yeah. You can be a part of that.
We're excited to announce it.
Yeah.
If you're already a paid subscriber, don't worry. You are now officially,
you could put
and
on
always
your
have
resume.
been, a paid intern. Yes, please broadcast it everywhere. Let everyone know that you are a paid intern of this podcast.
Yes, please do. And welcome aboard. If you're listening to this and you're surprised to learn this, welcome to the team. We're happy to have you. Just make sure you keep that fridge stocked at the office with the water, the soda. If it's, I know Jordan likes LaCroix. Yeah, I'm more partial to the bubbly kind. That's really good. Just make sure that there's something in there, though. A couple different varieties. And that's all that we ask.
Yeah. But we thank you. Thank you for being a paid intern of the show.
Yes. Thank you very much. And let's bring on our friend, LucidFoxx. He's going to be joining the program right after this. Yeah, I love Maine. It was nice to get back there. It's been obviously the last couple of years. It's been difficult to travel. I've been going to Maine to Old Orchard Beach just like since I was a kid, basically. And my mom went there when she was a kid, and it's kind of like a whole family tradition. Very cool for me to be able to bring my son. He's 6. Bring him down there. He thought he had a great time going on the beach and going down to the pier. That's I've been talking about this lately, but that's the part of America that I really do love. Like, I talk a lot of shit about America, I realize, and, death to America and the United Snakes of America, and all that kind of stuff. But frankly, I can't help it. But I do genuinely love that kind of trashy, touristy East Coast small little beach town with like all those, the carnival games and the fried foods and the beach and the novelty T-shirts and all the airbrush shirts. Baby. Yeah. I just love that shit. I can't help it, in spite of myself. Even though it is the Great Satan, I still do enjoy it. I must admit.
I mean, we're kind of like inundated with a lot of it when we're younger. So I think there's a certain amount of like nostalgia for all of those things, right? So it just hits harder when we go back to it.
Yeah,
it reminds us of when we didn't know so much.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and talk about like hitting hard. So I was there in Maine, and I was reading The Stand by Stephen King while I was in like Stephen King land, because that's where all these books always take place. Yeah, and there's big parts of The Stand that take place in Ogunquit, which is right near where I was staying, about a global pandemic that spirals out of control in the United States, and devastates the country, obviously to greater effect than anything we've seen in real life. But the similarities were still quite stark, I think, in being able to read that at that time. Absolutely. It was the vibes were pretty dark. I think it was good though. I had a great time.
I like Maine a lot. I don't know if I've been to where you said you were, but I've been to the place with LL Bean, like the big LL Bean boot. Was at Freeport. I've been there, and Portland a couple times. It's beautiful up there. I love the lighthouses and those rocky coasts. Northeast is really, really pretty.
Yeah, I love that stuff.
Have you been to? It's not like that far north, but have you been to Cape Cod at all?
No, I've been to Cape May. I've been to Cape May in New Jersey. I did a vacation there one time. That was very nice as well. Yeah. I enjoyed the very similar vibe. It is very
that same type of like you're saying, like that carnival culture and different like beachside things. Yeah, for sure. I think that's replicated across like a lot of the Northeast. Even when you go all the way down to Virginia, you still see a lot of that in like Virginia Beach and things of that nature.
It's like that in Rehoboth and Delaware as well. Yeah. It's Biden's favorite beach.
Yeah.
But Cape Cod's a little bit different. I went there. I've been there a few times. One of my exes, we would go up there to see her family. And the first time I was there, I was like, oh, this is cool. This is nice. And the second time I was there, I started to like notice like a weird trend. And then the third time I was there, I was like, I have not seen anybody other than white people here every time I've been here, like at all whatsoever. Like literally only white people.
I mean, you're in Cape Cod,
It was so bizarre.
Yeah. That's the thing up there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, to be clear, when I say that I like that, I don't like that. I'm not talking about
Rob,
that. That's not what I was
saying. That was your
to.
favorite part about Maine.
Just so we're totally clear on this.
Finally, canceled Rob arc. Let's go.
Yeah.
I've been trying for 2 years now.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But
they call me the uncancelable.
Can't cancel
I'm
me,
like
folks.
Daenerys.
Yeah.
In Game of Thrones.
Daenerys. Sure. Of course.
I'm kind of like a slay queen type thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, hey, Lucid, thanks so much for coming back on the program. It's great to talk to you again.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been.
Thanks for joining us.
Of course.
What are we actually like talking about on the podcast?
I was going to ask.
Today? I actually don't know.
No
Maine.
plans.
We're just going to do that the whole time. I literally have no idea. Like I'm sitting here. I've been streaming for the last 7 hours.
Jesus. Yeah, I raided into you like hours ago. I came back. I was like, oh, he's still doing this. Okay, that's cool.
Yeah, I did 8 hours
played
yesterday.
Like
and
3 hours of Fortnite in between here and there, Rob.
Oh, you must be really enjoying the no build mode, Lucid. Because I remember we talked about this. We got to play sometime.
Quite nice.
Yeah. We talked about this last time. The building was the big impediment to us really enjoying the game.
Yeah, absolutely.
Lucid's a fellow no builder.
I am.
We outnumber Jordan now on the podcast.
I like no build now.
Fan. Yeah, nice.
Okay.
Yeah, my buddies and I have been, because like we come from like the building world, like the more advanced strata in the Fortnite.
Of course.
Social.
The real blue
ladder.
collar of the looter shooters. Yeah, the building world. Yeah. Sure.
We're pretty competitive and we take it like, I wouldn't say seriously, but we're pretty intense and like we always want to win. We want to rack up as many kills as we can. Mm-hmm. And then we saw like, I think it was Tfue, him and his friends were like dropping in separate places and just trying to rack up how many kills they could get in no build.
Yeah.
And they were like getting like 30, 40, 50 kill games. So we like started to do that to see if we can hit 20. And then we hit 20 like pretty quickly. It's like, can we hit 30? And now we're aiming for a 40 kill game.
Yeah.
40 and 50. Actually, no, I think we did hit a 40, but we really want a 50 kill game.
So you enjoy it because it's all the noobs. It's just like a feeding frenzy for all the noobs.
Not necessarily.
And old people like me.
It depends, honestly.
Kind of. I would love to run into Rob's squad. I'm just saying, I think that'd be the game I hit 50.
Yeah, for sure. I get it.
I don't often have a squad. I'm a one-man army.
Yeah, there you
Tier
go.
1 operator.
I like solos in no build as well. I think it's a lot more fun than building one, just in general, the whole game. I think it was more forgivable in like squads because you have people that could like that were master engineers that could figure it all out for you. But solos, I think, is where I see the starkest difference for Fortnite with the no build.
Right. Okay, so we exhausted gaming talk. Now what are we talking about?
Talking about Maine vacation. Pod. We had the vacation update.
Yeah,
that was quick.
Gaming.
How do you all feel about deepfake Biden?
Smooth Biden. They injected him with the same.
What is going on?
They injected him with the smooth Bernie drugs.
Yeah, that's right. They didn't finish loading like the texture pack. It was just.
He actually reminded me of in The Simpsons with Mr. Burns when they inject him with like the chemicals and he has the "I bring you love" with the dilated pupils and everything.
Yeah.
That's what he looks like. And that was his whole like. You can't be pro-insurrection and pro-police. Was that what he was saying?
Yeah, that was his whole thing, yeah.
Which is famously not true at all. I mean, you actually can very much be pro-police.
A lot of contradiction there,
Yeah. There's a number of people that are indeed police that were very much pro-insurrection.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was Liz Cheney's line just the day before, too, where I think somebody tried to criticize her on her, like all the Capitol Hill cops were kind of like, hero cops or whatever. And they were like, well, wait a second. I think some people stood by and she's like, well, don't you bring that in here. It's like,
Yeah.
Have we forgotten that a lot of them were very casual and even taking selfies with people? Or
yeah,
we're just backing off of that now because we need to lionize like the police? Because I don't know. I remember them being just kind of like, oh, I mean, if you guys want to come in for a little bit.
Yeah, little lackadaisical about the whole security thing.
Yeah.
Weirdly.
Well, they are kind of tourists, so,
Yeah, exactly.
God.
That was bizarre.
Yeah.
That was one thing that with the whole January 6th investigation, I thought maybe they could spend a little time talking about that a little bit, you know?
Yeah.
You know, I understand why you need to dig into this a little bit, but that's probably an element that they could afford to take a look at as well, the way that these people, despite, you know, openly talking about on social media for weeks that they intended to storm the Capitol, how they were allowed to do that. Whereas, as we all know, as we've talked about a number of times, you know, anyone... if it was a BLM protest or anything like that, they, of course, would not be coming anywhere near the building. I think the United States government has that ability to summon the security forces necessary to protect these places. Well, yeah, so we're able to get it together on that one.
Yeah, 100%.
The video itself, though, I thought was an odd thing to do. Like, I'm assuming this was filmed, like, in the past couple days, and that would be when he had COVID. So, like, I think doing that was like a proof of life thing. Like, see, he looks great.
He's doing just fine.
Oh, yeah,
It otherwise could have just been a tweet. Like, that's just something he, I think, has tweeted before. Like, why not just do that? But, like, they really had to force it. Just be like, he's not even affected by COVID. Like, which is the same thing they did with Trump. When Trump was in the hospital, they were like,
you got to show strength. Otherwise, like, she's going to sweep in and just, you know, knock down the ropes.
Even down to, like, the photo ops, when Trump had COVID, like day 2 in the hospital, they had him in like a jacket, a dress shirt with no tie, unbuttoned at the top, and him sitting at a desk like drawing on a blank piece of paper, and they did the exact same look for Biden.
Absolutely.
Like,
he's making calls.
So bizarre. No one's calling for this.
Yeah. He's got this. He's got everything under control. Well, again, I think it's that very... I mean, maybe it's not for us so much, but just like a more global, like, hey, no, we're cool. Sickness or whatever, but our leaders are going to be just okay. Yeah. We still have to project that kind of like pseudo like understanding of strength to people.
Yeah. Well, there's been a lot of disinformation being spread about the fact that our president is quote unquote a feeble old man who's
I don't know,
barely aware of where he is.
I don't know why people say that, but that was
it's a conspiracy theory.
It was either it was Hard Drive or The Onion that said COVID unclear of what it can actually do to Biden's frail old body.
That's great. Yeah.
It's like, yeah, sure, that's good.
That's I think one of the best like very clear about faces that the Dems did on Biden after the primary. It went from like them openly after the debates being like, you can clearly see this guy is not all here. Multiple candidates made comments about his mental stability and mental health. And then as soon as he got the nomination, it was quickly, no, this is a conspiracy theory. I can't even believe you guys would suggest this.
Oh man,
it's fantastic
it's wild
stuff.
To me. Yeah. The amount of like, folks that'll defend that to the hilt on like Twitter and whatnot, you know? Like, you guys, Russian disinformation. What time is it in Moscow, folks?
Yeah, he's literally neurodivergent and a minor. And you're saying this about him.
That's right, yeah.
That's what people are saying.
Oh, man. Yeah, it's wild that like it went from like a very commonly known thing, and because there were no like real Biden fans like primaries. And then even going into them, like, they just manifested out of South Carolina because they needed anything Bernie. Then all of a sudden it was like, damn, he's like the best. You remember the Barack Obama days when they were running around doing airplanes? He's still that mentally cogent for sure.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, okay, man.
I believe it was Buttigieg, where he was like, we were worried that he's not going to be able to carry it across the finish line or something like that.
Yeah.
I saw a really remarkable stat yesterday. CNN did a poll of Democratic voter preferences in 2024, and 75% of voters said they want someone other than Biden, which is hilarious because all like the talking heads and like the Dem loyalists are all like, he's doing great. Look at all of Biden's accomplishments. Like he's finishing Trump's wall. Isn't that awesome? And he's not. And he's making
Brooklyn
Mexico pay for it. Trump couldn't get it done.
You've got they've got the Mexican government paying billions for the smart border tech.
Yeah,
Biden only the deal maker Biden could do that kind of.
Yeah, that's right. Kind of that's right. Did you see the other poll, the New Hampshire poll? I think it was yesterday, of Democratic preference for 2024 out of like a list of candidates.
Is that the one where Pete was up there?
Yeah, Buttigieg taking him by a percentage point. And again, it's 2022. No, like none of this means anything right now. It's just like people speculating wildly. But it does give like a position of where a broader Democratic electorate is like on Biden right now. Like that.
Do you think Pete is going to try to primary him?
I don't think he would. I think he would be looking for his approval in it. I don't know if he would outright. I think he's too much of a worm to outright, just be like, I'm going to be. I'll be taking on the big dog. Yeah, but if he gets permission, absolutely. Yeah. Because that's kind of what they set him up for, right? They gave him the transportation secretary job that he's like, God, the mayor from South Bend, all the bona fides he had for that.
Oh yeah.
They gave him this job that's a really nice front facing position for him to kind of like build up like accolades on. Something that's definitely going to be needed is transportation infrastructure reform. He talks about bicycles like every week or whatever, as if we're like doing anything towards like that type of infrastructure. So yeah,
he does a lot of media hits for them too.
Yeah, so they use this as a position to kind of like build him up as a prospective candidate for the future. Because I mean, that is, if you look at like the more like neoliberal project of the Democrats, I think Pete is like a perfect vessel for that ideology. He's someone that won't question that believes in the project,
Yeah, and it's funny too because they kind of tried to position Kamala in the same way by giving her vice president, and it's had the exact opposite effect, unfortunately.
Well, I mean, she just like I'm not saying that Pete's the most charismatic dude ever, but at least he's not an empty suit. Like that's the problem with Kamala is she has like negative charisma when it comes to any of this. Like every time they try to put her in front of an audience, it's like, oh God, no, what are you doing?
Yeah.
How are you doing worse than Biden is at some of these discussions?
Yeah, that's not good.
Her attempts at moments of sincerity and deep,
they're so awkward.
Introspective thought are so funny. Like they're honestly incredible.
Yeah,
like her mind is unbelievably powerful.
Yeah, yeah. That's our real good. Neurodivergent in the White House. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, let's go, Kamala. Like, why don't we work that angle more? Like. Sorry, Sweaty. She's got social anxiety. I'm sorry that you like hate that in a vice president, but
I almost feel like she's a little bit been deliberately sabotaged too, because they seem to give her every like impossible job and like just at every awful moment just send Kamala out there to take the hits.
Send her to the border while they're talking about the caravan.
Yeah.
Just see what happens.
Yeah, great. Or just like even the whole like sort of consultant-driven sort of rollout when they started the administration of it's based primarily around like footwear, and it's like, who is this connect? Who's this being pitched to? Who likes this?
I can't even describe how much I heard about that in like Dem circles.
Really?
Like, I want a president I want a vice president that wears Chucks. It's like, what? Tim? Yeah, Tim's too. It's just who cares?
That's amazing.
I want a president who wears, classic red, white, and black Air Jordan 1s. If I don't have that, I'm not voting.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. That's very interesting to see kind of like where people are in their like political representation at this point. Where it's like at this point, it's aesthetic, like, and that's what it is for a lot of K-hivers is just like the aesthetic that she presents. It's definitely not the person. Like, there's nothing compelling about like Kamala on her own, but it's the aesthetic that she provides for them and like something to kind of like believe in, like she was the big like she was the cop, she was the lady, the boss lady that got stuff done, and now like she's brought that energy to the White House for them, even though like none of these things are true. Just, governance based on vibes for a lot of like for Dem circles now.
Yeah, well, it's not like there's anything going on that they could like take a look at and maybe help fix some of the problems.
Whoa, hey,
everything's already fixed, right? The orange man's out of the office. The Cheetos are removed from the White House, so really,
that's right.
You can just rely on that kind of vibes based platform.
Did you watch his speech from yesterday?
Trump's?
Yeah.
No, I didn't see that.
His DC speech, he's got some he's got some new bangers that he's throwing out there.
Oh shit, I didn't see
that.
He wants to make he wants to round up all the homeless people and make Yeah,
I did see that.
See that?
Yeah. We're gonna build them in beautiful cardboard box cities outside the cities.
I think they're called favelas. We're gonna build these out. They're gonna be great. Yeah, amazing stuff. Like, oh, okay, man, that's wow.
Well, I saw people were like pointing out that it's perfectly lining up with the Star Trek Deep Space Nine timeline of the Bell riots,
the sanctuary cities.
The sanctuary cities. Yeah, it's like it's literally those exact circumstances are being recreated.
Good Lord. I mean, as long as then we get like people showing up from like Deep Space Nine to hang out with, I'm good with that.
Yeah. Well, then we can get to the Star Trek time. If we are the Star Trek timeline, that's great. But like, there's a whole lot that happens between now and the 24th century when everything's cool and you have replicators and space exploration and all that stuff. A lot of bad shit happens prior to that.
Yeah.
Which I'm not really looking forward to as much.
I distinctly remember that about Star Trek. Yeah, I think there are some bad things also that happen. Yeah.
They did also predict Ireland reunification as well.
Yeah, that's is also true. It is looking like Ireland would like to come back together. So good for them, honestly.
Those Star Trek writers were onto something.
Yeah, Gene Roddenberry, maybe the modern day Nostradamus. Who knows?
I mean, going back to what Biden was saying, that whole Biden speech, Lucid. I'm just like wondering if you've been following this whole January 6 hearings and sort of what you're.
I've been so disconnected from the idea of it. Because it just like, for me, I don't know, what comes out of any of this, you know? Like, this is, for me, like, this is the idea, like, the real, like, driving force behind when we talk about things like bread and circuses, right? Like, this is something that is created solely as spectacle for people to indulge in as things don't get any better, as we have a democratic governance that's doing, like, next to nothing to help people out. We've thrown out the child tax credit. Who knows where we stand on the idea of infrastructure? You know, so it's like at least you have this. At least we're playing all the hits. At least we're showing you that Orange Man was indeed bad. He threw hamburger. You know, we are showing you that like the same things you kind of already knew about him.
Yeah,
but maybe you get a little more information now. It's like a juicy, tantalizing little bonus episode of a serial drama. But there's nothing about it that rings to me as if like there's going to be justice for any of this or anyone's going to be held accountable. Just like, okay, well, yeah, I guess that's a nice thing that's a fun thing you're doing at least.
Yeah.
Gonna put Steve Bannon in jail again, huh? Oh, all right. Well, that's something.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's always been the thing with me. It's just like we intend through this multi-week process of all these hearings to prove beyond a shadow of a doubt that Donald Trump did indeed dispute the election results and command people to go to the Capitol. And it's like, I already believe this. Like, I don't.
Yeah, I knew that.
I saw it. He's saying it. Watching it. He's saying it daily.
He's telling people that at his rallies. I don't like. What are we missing here?
Yeah. I don't really get it. I mean, I guess maybe there's like hypothetical people that were on the fence about this, but I'm not so sure. I'm not really convinced that there's people out there that were not sure and then were convinced by these hearings that, I think this guy did want to overturn the election results. Like,
that's my thing. Maybe you get like the 1 or 2% of people that were already kind of like Mike Pence that are now like former Mike Pence or something like that, or more establishment like Republicans that are now also like, yeah, you know what? I think Trump did want to kill him. But past that, like, I just don't think like I struggle to see like who this is for besides just being this like soma for the public that is struggling through inflation, struggling through high gas prices, through very like troubling and trying times as we like move towards a recession. And it's like, well, at least you got this, you know, you can remember how bad Orange Man was again, now that's around the time of the midterms. So maybe that'll encourage you to come out, you know, chip your vote in for us, because we don't want this to happen again, right? You know, y'all remember how bad it could be, I guess. It's like, yeah, I guess, man.
It's been funny to see like the turns that people have made. I mean, people already in the right didn't like Mike Pence, especially if they were Trump loyalists, but now he's like a total punching bag. If you saw like the Turning Point conference, they were all the speakers were just taking shots at him, just throwing him under the bus. But now like the left and a lot of liberals are mad at Merrick Garland for not doing anything after like demanding this guy was like the person who should be on the Supreme Court. And it's just like, it's been remarkable to watch like everyone in these cults of personality just refuse to acknowledge, hey, maybe these are like broader systemic problems, rather just try to pin it on two guys, Mike Pence and now Merrick Garland. And it's just, I don't know. Like, nobody really seems to be able to comprehend how these things can operate in like bigger spaces.
No,
including involving multiple people. It's just like a really interesting look at the dumbing down of Americans in politics that just happened over the past few decades.
I've described it like this before. When I talked about like the idea of it being bred in circuses, I've described to my community as like, this is true crime brain. You know, this is like our logical endpoint of what happens to a populace that's been served like serialized dramas and like true crime for a while now, where they all want to sit around and like pick the bad guys and pick the good ones and who could have done more and how these things could have played out and sit and prognosticate around it, because there's no like getting involved in like the feat of anything anymore. It's just like, well, what, I don't know, what could Merrick Garland do now? How are we gonna hit him? You know, like I heard somebody the other day talking about like Matt Gaetz, where he's talking about 2024, and they're like, well, I don't know if he should be talking about 2024. He's going to go to jail soon. And I was like, how?
Yeah.
How are any of them? Like, what are you talking about? This is indistinguishable from people like years ago that you rightfully like shouted down, saying that they were being like weird freaks when they're like, well, Hillary's going to jail. You know that, right? Like you've now engaged in the same rhetoric from the other side of it, as if like something has changed like fundamentally within our justice system, where any of these people get held accountable for anything.
Yeah. Oh, that was Pence's former chief of staff, I think. It was Mark Short.
Yeah. And it's like, I struggle to see what you're talking about here. How any of this is going to like come to account.
Yeah, well, it's the faith, the never-ending faith in institutions, right? That a lot of these liberals have.
That someone will be there to right the wrongs. Yeah, sure.
The whole Josh Hawley thing was kind of funny. Seeing the footage of him running away. That was
literally
enjoyable.
The only thing that I watched was the 50 edits with different music of him running away. Like that's classic stuff.
I talked about this on TYT, so sorry for repeating the point, but I do want to again reiterate. That had nothing to do with what they were talking about that night. They just included that to take a swipe at him because it's hilarious. Like the whole point of that night was about how Trump didn't do anything when he could have, in minutes, walked over to the briefing room and made an address, been on national TV instantly, because the camera is always running in there, and the media's. They have the offices for the press pool right behind it. He could have immediately talked to the press about telling people to go home, but he didn't. That was the whole point of the night. And then out of nowhere, it's like, oh, by the way, here's Josh Hawley running. They just wanted to take a swipe, and it was so good.
But again, we knew that though. Like,
of course,
we know because he didn't make the statement. We know that the president can make a statement. We know that Donald Trump could have at any time said, "Hey, please stop storming the Capitol," and he didn't because he thought it was cool.
Yeah, he thought it was pretty neat, honestly.
This is not a new thing that is being discovered here. I do think the Howley thing is funny though, because like if you're gonna act like this like insurrectionary like tough guy and talk all this shit about doing a coup and do the whole raised fist to the hogs or whatever, they're getting all riled up over this talk, and then as soon as the actual stuff starts happening, you run away and just let all these like saps who got convinced by the former host of The Apprentice to like throw away their entire lives to try to ensure that you can remain president. Then you run away and allow them to take the fall. I mean, there's something kind of just funny and amusing about that, definitely.
Yeah, of course.
But you didn't need hearings you could have just put out a tweet the next day that showed that, and all of that stuff would not be necessary.
Yeah.
That was another thing though. Like that was pretty good. The outtakes from the next day when they were recording that video and they wanted him to condemn it, and he like couldn't get through the script. I don't know if he can actually read, but he was like slamming his fist down, getting mad at the prompt, refusing to say certain things, taking things out of the transcript. Awesome. Like he was trying to dance around his words, but it was just like that. I thought was very funny. Like course, that, I liked that we got to see that. Other than that, everything else,
we're getting the blooper reel in that. You know, it's like, oh, okay, good.
Well, that's what I mean. Let's wait to what you were saying, Lucid. It's like it's funny content. Like it's
of course.
It can be entertaining.
If you're watching it from the point of just like pure spectacle, like I guess I can understand how you would enjoy it. But if you're looking at it for any form of like, accountability within governance, I mean, there's none of that. Like we're bereft of any of that happening at any, I think, level of holding like powerful politicians or just people in general to account. So if you want the dream of that, I guess you can hope, but I just don't see what that serves.
You mentioned earlier, though, Bannon is convicted, again.
Yeah, of course.
So now, because Trump isn't there to pardon him, we will finally have the execution carried out by the
of course.
And I do take pleasure in reporting this.
Wasn't his whole plan last time that he got indicted was for the attention? He was doing it because he knew. I mean, this is the first time that they've held someone in contempt of Congress for like half a century or something, right? So,
and he's still daring them to do something too. Like he's still defiant and going on the radio and being like,
that to happen.
Yeah.
So that's just more like, at the end of the day, I think that's just more press for him. He realizes that he'll sit in jail for a little while. He'll sit in white collar prison and just kind of hang out.
Yeah.
And then
he'll play tennis.
Just
he'll
raises
hang out.
his profile. Yeah.
Oh, for sure.
He turns into a martyr.
Yeah,
absolutely.
He'll fundraise off of it.
Absolutely. Like it plays well to his audience, I think.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, he's a kind of interesting figure because I remember in 2015, 2016 when Trump was elected, thinking like Bannon, I think, deliberately leaned into this campaign, talking about him like he was evil incarnate, and he really leaned into that.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
But definitely someone that has these kinds of. He's always had these kind of like insurrectionary tendencies. I remember he described himself as a Leninist. Early on in the Trump administration, how he wanted to seize control of these institutions and like use them against his political enemies and stuff like that. And that's part of that narrative, like being persecuted as like that and going to prison possibly. There's a number of stories and coinciding with the rise of fascism that's a central part of those stories. So I can see why he views that as being like a part of that narrative that he can use to sort of build up his own insurrectionary sort of credentials.
Absolutely.
But in the ultimate act of bipartisanship, this is the beautiful bipartisanship of Biden and the Democratic Party. Now, through their own inaction on a number of extremely important issues, now they're assuring that the coming right-wing takeover of the U.S. government will just be nice and democratic, and there'll be no need for any insurrections or any of that stuff. They're just rolling out the red carpet to ensure that they're it's gonna be nice and legal.
Well, as long as everyone's following the rules, I don't see any problem with it. Like you just don't want it to be messy, and that's the biggest problem, really.
Yeah, exactly. It's the ultimate selfless act of bipartisanship.
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
So now to the biggest story, I think this week. John Cena, his skin is coming to Fortnite. So,
I think that's important. Yeah, finally.
You can
do
see
with that
him
information
in the item store.
Excellent. That's it.
Starting tomorrow.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
No, I think one of the things I've been covering, and I think it's reading about, that I think is just really fucked up, that you're about to see a little bit tomorrow, but then especially Friday and early next week, is the quarterly earnings reports for gas and oil companies.
Yeah,
and
man.
They had a record quarter one.
Mm-hmm.
Record quarter one, like 300%. The top 5 domestic oil companies had 300% increase collectively from quarter one of 2021. They are poised to double that this quarter on the backs of working people who just got fucking railroaded on gas prices for a couple months. And at the same time, we are seeing like catastrophic extreme weather. We got the White House tweeting out, hey, gas prices are down 69 cents over the past few weeks. It's like, oh, okay, what are we doing about that long term? Are we just going to hope that they don't just raise prices again?
Well, Dark Brandon is going to sternly demand that they lower the prices, and they're going to do it.
That's right. Dark Brandon said lower the prices, and they did, Jordan. I don't know if you noticed that. So
he sent a strongly worded letter to the manager of gas, and
that's right. And they had no choice. Honestly, they were like, well, I mean,
exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I gotta say, I love the Dark Brandon meme. It's one of my favorite things probably to come out of the Biden administration.
It's well finely crafted meme.
Yeah. Like that's the thing. I was we made fun of the "Let's Go Brandon" thing, and when it started to come out, these kind of weird conservatives are just saying that, just say fuck Joe Biden if you want. Who cares? Like what? But I must admit I will give them credit. I don't think conservatives are very funny ever, but the whole Brandon thing has kind of stuck around, and now I do find that quite funny.
The memification of that thing, and now it's been processed through like more left circles as well, and it's just kind of like, continue to propagate itself. Yeah, it's good comedy.
Lucid, I'm sure you've seen it, but every time I go to Texas, it's different vibe over in Dallas than it is where you are. But so many fucking people have Let's Go Brandon shirts and masks.
Oh, everywhere.
Fewer masks now, like no one seems to wear it, but shirts everywhere. It's so funny. It's I always smile when I see one.
Yeah, there's less in Austin, but there's still.
Wait, do you have one?
Huh?
When I was,
he said he's got to admit
Maine,
something.
When I was in Maine, just a week ago, I did in fact purchase a Let's Go Brandon t-shirt from a novelty t-shirt shop on the pier in Old Ocean Beach. It's really sick. I really like it.
Nice.
I don't think I'll be wearing it right now.
Yeah.
I don't think I'll be wearing it in public. I will probably wear it like on Twitch and stuff. I don't think I'm going to go around. I'm not that into it. But,
okay. That's fair.
But I did buy a Let's Go Brandon shirt. It's really good.
We should just do Let's Go Brandon merch for the Insurgents. Just lean into it.
There's a big market.
Let's just rip off a bunch of Republicans.
Yeah, that's right. What are they going to do with it? I mean, they're already merchandising it. It doesn't belong to anybody. Just jump in there.
That's the real LGB alliance.
God, fine. I've seen that on a shirt for sure in Austin.
Yeah.
It's like LGB2. Let's go Brandon to quit or something like that. Or let's get Brandon to quit, I think, was the shirt. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I expected. Yeah.
But you were up there on the climate change point. You were up in the Northeast, Rob. How was the weather there? And I know, Lucid, you have been dealing with some pretty... Texas in general has been dealing with some fucking brutal temperatures with the instructions from your caring, compassionate leadership down there that you should not use your air conditioning because of the fragile electrical grid.
That's literally the electricity broker in Texas is sending out like not my power company, like ERCOT itself is sending out, emails saying, hey, if you wouldn't mind, please don't use as much power today. No reason. We're not expecting outages, but maybe if you could just watch the power.
And famously, conservatives in Texas respond to those kinds of urgings very
they love it. They love the. Luckily, we haven't cultivated a conservative base that very much is like, but my freedoms,
Yeah, so the moment they asked that, I mean, there's something I was talking about the other day, just like watching. It's really amazing, I think, the way that the conservative movement has this grip on power there, and that you could have a situation where through decades of private industry controlling energy for millions of people and just like not investing in infrastructure and their own lack of investment leading to these widespread outages and getting people to use less energy and all this stuff. This is a direct result of like private industry of capitalism. This is the way capitalism works in the energy system. But then the leaders of Texas, who have a full grip on all levers of political power and have for decades, all they need to say are like, it's because of these like Green New Deal policies that it's like that this is happening.
And that's it. Yeah.
And people just say, that's right. And then when they get asked to turn off their air conditioning, they're like, I'm going to turn it up to even higher just to own the libs, to own Brandon or whatever. And they don't.
Finally, I'm going to show him.
They never take a little look at like who's been in charge of this issue.
Of course,
for decades and decades.
That's the whole thing, right? Like figuring that out would predispose them to actually like understanding the power that has been like leveraged in such a fashion towards like fossil fuel companies and just corporations writ large. And that doesn't. I mean, they only have like a mild, I guess, distaste of corporations, more from like the drain the swamp aspect, but they don't like have the revulsion towards like Exxon or anything like that. They're just like, oh well, they made it so my gas went up, and that's about as far as it goes. They don't care about them from like a climate change aspect or a crumbling infrastructure aspect. That doesn't matter. They just
Well, that's the amazing. I mean, that's the way that people have been convinced that anything that the state does or the government does, it's automatically inefficient and bad, and everything that the private industry does is efficient and good and well managed.
Oh yeah.
Despite any evidence, like the mountains of evidence to the contrary right in front of their faces.
That's echoes of Reagan, baby.
Yeah.
That's that conversation we had with Adam Conover a couple weeks ago. I really appreciate him and also his new show, The G Word, because it really shows like just how unsung of heroes some of the people in the federal government are. Like just like non-elected, non-political people who just keep the fucking lights on.
Yeah.
Like doing things like, and especially on weather. His episodes on the weather were really, really fascinating. Like they literally fly into hurricanes to track its movement and its speed and what kind of a threat it poses to people. And sometimes they have to, using this data, they have to make decisions pretty carefully about evacuations. Like, you know, obviously they're going to upend people's, you know, lives. But if they don't, out of, you know, just being too conservative, like it could cause a lot of harm. And, you know, it's a lot of stress for somebody who's, again, just routinely attacked in a broader context by, you know, half the country, basically. Another thing just relating to weather, he pointed out in that show that companies like AccuWeather want to privatize all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And they have been really, really pushing to prevent the National Weather Service from alerting people about extreme weather in their area, including tornadoes. And there was an incident where they had information about, I think, a tornado, and only sent a push alert to paying subscribers.
Hell yeah.
Like, this is so fucked. This is absolutely so fucked.
Finally, this is this dystopia, this subscribe to everything dystopia I've been always dreaming of.
God. Yeah, I just, it's really bleak. And that's just something I've been trying to work through. Because Bernie did a stream last week that I thought was really interesting. And he talked about some of those feelings. And it's like, look, we've been in tough positions before. Like we've had really, really difficult moments together as a country and as a people. And we've worked through them, sometimes not to optimal ends, but we've worked through them before. And you can't just like throw in the towel. And it just seems like maybe it's just I have a much more limited reference point than someone like Bernie. But it still is very frustrating to kind of like see all this stuff and just feel just totally overwhelmed and powerless in looking at all of it collectively, because there's so many different new issues. Like this is not an issue that they could have faced 40 years ago. Right.
Yeah, and that's just it. I mean, I was looking, we were just going over, what was it? The climate. Have you seen this climate spiral? The little 2-minute long like animation? And I said, and I pointed out, like, it's a little animation that people were throwing around Twitter the other day that shows you like globally how much temperature has increased at certain points. And I pointed out like all these where there would start to be anomalies in the graph. I was like, okay, well, there's, you know, the beginning of us like pushing into the Industrial Revolution. There's this and that. And the one point that I got to where you start to see a staggering difference, and it's really they show you like a top-down look of the spiral as well, so you can see like how exaggerated it is. Where it really starts to get exaggerated is when you look directly at like 1980 on, and it's like, oh, when we started like mass deregulation. Oh, okay, well that's fun. Thanks, Reagan. Very cool stuff, man. Yeah. Excellent, and cool stuff for the environment, I guess.
Well, it's interesting because at the same time, there's been a lot of like there's reporting that's been done for a long time now about how around the same time this campaign of like deliberate disinformation on the part of these fossil fuel companies hiring these high-powered advertising and consultancy firms and figuring out exactly how to muddy the waters and prevent any
right. In the 70s, they kind of like finished their Oppo research and how they're going to attack it, right? And then just started like pushing a lot of that. Yeah, it's
always really frustrating whenever this comes up because, you know, talk about, you know, the January 6th hearings and the idea that there's not going to be any responsibility for that. When we talk about like the role that the fossil fuel companies have played in like literally destroying our planet, destroying people's drinking water, destroying the biosphere, and quite deliberately lying about it. Like their own scientists all confirmed this stuff, as we know, in the 70s. And what we're talking about when we discuss this, I mean, it's great that we have reporting about this in mainstream media and stuff, but we're talking about like one of the all-time greatest crimes in like the history of humanity, basically. This massive conspiracy and cover-up, which is literally threatening all life on Earth. The people that carried this out, you know, they have names and addresses, and like we know that they did this. And it's just, I get very frustrated when it comes up, because it's just like, it's good that we know this, I guess, that this massive conspiracy took place, but so far, you know, in any of proposals about how to resolve climate change, in fact, if I remember correctly, Bernie was the only one that's ever even remotely suggested this. But I think part of that climate package should include actual justice and an actual investigation into this very serious, all-time great, horrific crime that's going to have massive consequences for millions or maybe billions of people. Like that's a pretty serious thing.
Yeah, like if we had like a fun summer camp where they could become like educated about what they had done or something like that. Yeah. No, I hear you. I agree with that.
I know, it's just maddening to think about.
Yeah, 100%. It's wild that, like, you know, I talk about it quite often. Like the idea that, like, you know, all these older people that have been implicit in just tearing apart like systems that exist or that did exist to kind of like protect us and our climate, are never going to face like any real like justice. They're just gonna kind of chill out and enjoy the rest of their days. And then people are going to celebrate, you know, on the left will be like, this person's gone now. It's like, yeah, I mean, that doesn't really do anything.
Yeah,
they
died
achieved everything they wanted.
Mansion surrounded by their loving family members. Like,
like they figured out, they took all the money they wanted. They assured that like their progeny is going to continue on in, you know, whatever sort of insulated apparatus they can to avoid the worst of this. Like, I don't think it's a win that they're gone, you know?
Jordan, that's probably a good time to bring up your piece in Substack that came out a couple days ago, right? About climate doomerism and this stuff. Do you want to talk about that?
Sure.
What made you want to write that?
It's just how I've been feeling lately. Like, the stuff. So we have this heat wave in the Southwest, and we have this heat wave in the Northeast. And now Pacific Northwest is getting hit with one. And at the same time, you see record temperatures in the United Kingdom. You see wildfires in, was it Spain, and was it France or Spain and Portugal? Europe across Portugal, the board is being hit.
Over 1,700 deaths in Portugal.
I think someone in my chat yesterday said it was 2,000 now.
Yeah. Oh,
like
Jesus.
Just horrifying.
Yeah.
And thousands more displaced as a result. And like people, like these people aren't political, but like climate scientists are like just begging to be heard. Like, please understand that this is caused by human behavior. Like, this is not normal. We don't just have like, you know, winter, spring, wildfire season, summer, second wildfire season, and fall and winter. You know, it's just like, this isn't just something we're going to integrate into the way we don't have to integrate it into the way we live, right? And it's frustrating to see, like, at the same, you know, Biden rolls out or talks about how, I want to spend $2 billion on climate. Well, that just means nothing when you're pumping nearly $1 trillion into the military. That's the largest single institutional emitter of carbon emissions. Yeah. And that just totally wipes out with this tiny effort that you're trying to do to like placate activists. And right. You know, oil companies are poised for yet another record quarter, and they're begging the Saudis to increase production, and nothing really changes for the better. It seems like nothing changes for the better. So it's like all this stuff, like we just talked about feeling overwhelmed, that leads to that sense of doomerism. Like, I'm singularly powerless. Like, we are all three of us more or less powerless in this effort. And it's really easy to slip into despair. So I, thought I've been thinking about it a lot lately and wanted to just kind of put some words on screen, I guess, about that, because there is, we very well could lose this effort. We could lose this fight, and things can definitely get worse, but it doesn't have to. And the only way we really guarantee that is if we just live in despair and we refuse to do anything because we feel like we're doomed, and we let that govern our actions, govern our participation. And it's not just checking the box for Democrats every 2 years. Like, it goes way beyond that. It's getting involved in DSA. It's getting involved in supporting Sunrise Movement and groups that are like taking it straight to people in power, doing direct action, doing civil disobedience. Like, those are things that we need to be doing to keep holding these people's feet to the fire, because they do react to public pressure after a while.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Student loan debt is a good example of that. If people didn't scream at them constantly about it, they would never talk about it. Yeah. That is directly in action. But I don't know, man. I think acknowledging that it very well could be a losing battle, but refusing to just kind of like accept that as our destiny, I think is important to kind of think of all those feelings and thoughts together.
Mm-hmm. One thing that I've been leaning on a lot, because it's the last couple of years politically following all this stuff has been incredibly disillusioning. I've talked about that a lot. You talk about the way that the Bernie campaign, the way that elites came together in the media and in politics to ensure that the Bernie campaign wouldn't work. Same with Corbyn in the UK.
Seeing these things happen. Yeah. It's just like,
Yeah, and I've been really inspired by this idea that Kwame Ture talks about a lot, where he talks about mobilization versus organization, and how there's been many, many mass mobilizations of people around the climate. Like you look at the stuff that like Greta Thunberg is doing, big mass mobilizations of hundreds of thousands of people in some cities or millions of people in some places. But despite all these mass mobilizations, it never actually leads to any change in the political system. No, the politicians like the Justin Trudeaus and the Joe Bidens of the world say, we see you, we hear you. Justin Trudeau will march in the climate march himself while simultaneously overseeing, an increase in our emissions and doing nothing on the climate agenda that he kind of campaigned on. Excuse me. I'm very sick and I'm trying to fight through it here. But I guess that's the part that I think we're going to have to try and figure out eventually, is how to turn these mass mobilizations, for which there are millions and millions of people across the world that are very, very passionate about that, especially young people who don't want to live in this future world where we're heading towards, this really uncertain and terrifying future. There's millions of people around the world that are very passionate about this, that will mobilize around this issue. And the reality is that we won't be able to avoid that outcome until this mass mobilization does become militantly organized towards attacking the machinery of capitalism that's causing the crisis. And one thing that I think the pandemic showed is that, working people are the ones that have the power in our culture and in our society. And when people stop doing their jobs, the jobs that people kind of take for granted, the people at the grocery store, stockers and people and the cashiers and people at pharmacies and nurses and teachers, like working people are the ones that actually have the power that allow this machine to continue. And when the millions of people that are really passionate about this issue are able to not just mobilize and not just march and not just make demands of politicians who then just kind of hand wave them away, once it's organized into giving people the ability to literally just stop this machine from turning and to stop it from happening, that's the only thing that the people in power will ever listen to. They're not interested in hearing the slogans or seeing the signs or seeing the big mass mobilizations. That's the only thing they understand is the perpetuation of the capitalist machinery that lines their pockets and lines their bank accounts. It makes their precious little numbers go up, their precious little lines and numbers, their precious bleeps and boops and what have you. That's the only thing they'll ever understand. And that's one thing that I hope we're going to see, in this coming next couple of decades as we careen towards this uncertain future, is people taking this passion that they have, and rather than just perpetually getting into these mass mobilizations, to really organize politically from the ground up and literally stop this machine from turning. That's the only thing that people in power are ever going to listen to.
I think that's quite right. I've had discussions with my community over the past weeks and months, because I think some people misunderstand when we talk about the understanding of violence in the system, right? The current systems at play deem the very actions you're talking about to be violence, right? The ideas of shutting down work, shutting down people's every day, the things that keep us churning. So I think one of the biggest things that I've discussed is how people need to understand, put a different lens on what we view as violence in everyday life, how that is perpetuated by state mechanisms that are completely and wholly uncaring of people otherwise until these actions are taken. and start realizing, like, that's why I've been honestly so very excited about the worker movement, to see people like actually unionizing and pushing to make like their workplace into a cooperative effort, make it so that they actually have like governing and bargaining power amongst each other. Like that's huge. Those are steps that have the potential to lead to things like much bigger within this country, and kind of like with each little like chip away, it starts to form like these cracks in those corporations and these power structures that have been created by people much bigger than like you or I. And we see that like reflected in folks like Howard Schultz, right? Where he's on the back burner right now, has no idea how to handle the massive unionization efforts that are happening within his company. And I think that's like really important, is just like understanding the lens of which we need to attack these systems, understanding like what that they are going to like consider that a rebuke of everything that has been like established so far, and how they are going to respond with like shutting down stores and committing violence against people in that fashion. We saw this, what was it, 2 or 3 days ago, a Chipotle reportedly permanently closed because they had decided to unionize. And the excuse given by Chipotle was, well, they were just taking too many sick days.
During a pandemic.
Which makes no sense. Yeah. So we closed an entire store, we threw out literally our whole modus operandi because they took too many sick days. Like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So I think that's something that people need to be prepared for, is that when we do like have a worker mobilization moment like we do now, that is when we start to see like the true like streams, I guess, of violence from these corporations, and the lengths they're willing to go to union bust and break apart like actual worker solidarity. And that's, I don't know, I hope that more people are like ready to kind of meet that moment.
I mean, I hear what you're saying, but I have been told recently by a number of very patriotic streamers and podcasters that these Starbucks workers, these PMC Starbucks workers,
PMC, they don't even refine the coffee bean, Rob. They don't. Can you believe that?
Yeah. So I hear you, but a counterpoint is that we need to keep that in mind as well. The blue-haired Starbucks baristas are really the elite 1%.
That's right.
Power center. Power center in this country. It's them and the truckers. Them versus the truckers.
Yeah, it's them versus. Yeah, absolutely.
The real workers.
That's true.
Yeah, are these like Ford F-150 owning like landscape business owners from the suburbs and the gated communities that don't want to take medicine. So
well, I mean, if we're talking about the same people, I believe that same person most recently said that the climate change is good, actually. And it helps make the workers stronger by dealing with harsher conditions. So that's they've got different strokes, different ideas for different people in this whole wide world.
Is this the person who said that the truckers were gonna bring about the revolution?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. So,
if it's who I'm thinking of,
one, but
if that person. Wait, if it's who I'm thinking of, that person like first like got their start in politics by being like a youth climate activist.
Oh, is that true?
If it's who I'm thinking of, they were like, they have like, I think their dad is wealthy.
I think you're talking about someone different. We're being quite vague. Yeah. This is vague subtweeting here.
Yeah,
but I think it's part of the same crowd.
I'll tell you after then.
It's part of the
same circles. Well, those circles I think broke recently. This is like just all gossip at this point, but they had a huge breakup on Twitter recently. So.
Really? Oh wow!
And we're solidarity.
There's some juicy goss that I have not caught up on. Yeah. Sorry, I'm chewing on a lozenge right now.
What happened? Did you get COVID in Maine?
Yeah,
so let's finish chewing on that bad boy. No,
he picked up the sickness from the stand.
Yeah, exactly. Coming back. No, I just my son had a bit of a cough, and kind of passed it on to me. And I've taken a number of COVID tests, and it was negative. So I just regular sick.
Yeah,
but on the mend.
Oh, okay. All right. Not even the that cool happens. Kind.
No.
Yeah. You didn't even get monkeypox up there, huh? All right.
Yeah.
That's fair, I guess.
It's so immature considering everything that's happened over the last 2 years, but I still just refuse to accept the new pandemic thing. I'm just like, I see any information about that upsets me. I'd be like one of those androids in Westworld, just like doesn't look like anything to me. It's just completely
sure.
It.
I can't believe.
It's a really mature adult way of dealing with these things, definitely.
That's fair. Hey, listen, we're only supposed to realistically process like so many things at a time. We've shot that about like our whole society at this point. So
yeah. Well, Lucid, it was great to have you on the show. I had no idea what we were even doing here, and here we. I thought that was a wonderful conversation. Thank you, Lucid.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Lucid.
no, I appreciate it. It was a great talk, guys. Always a pleasure.
Where can people follow you and find your stream?
My name is LucidFoxx on the internet. I can be found on Twitter with that name, 2 X's. Same thing on twitch.tv/LucidFoxx. And those are the places. 3 X's gets you some clown girl that's not affiliated with me. So don't do that.
I want to go there.
Yeah. This is a family podcast, so.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but
yeah, no, it was a pleasure, guys.
Hey everyone, thank you for listening to The Insurgents. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can find us on iTunes or Spotify or at Substack, theinsurgents.substack.com. You'll get the latest episodes delivered straight to your inbox as well as our newsletter. On Twitter, we are at InsurgentsPod. Tweet at us, harass Ken in our replies, and then send us your hate mail to theinsurgentspod@gmail.com. Thank you once again for listening.